As we all know, cinema isn't what it used to be, major studios now favoring quantity over quality and comfort in their own existing IPs rather than endorsing pure creativity. With the rise of streaming services beginning to fill that void, while blockbusters eat up every screen at the theater, it's progressively harder to find small budget offerings on the big screen, especially dialogue driven, a far cry from Hollywood's golden age where all budgets and genres were given a spotlight. One of those films was 1957's 12 Angry Men, directed by Sidney Lumet and written by Reginald Rose, based on his teleplay of the same name.
Now let's get started, huh?
Good idea. Yeah, let's get going, huh? We probably all got things to do here.
Beginning after the defense and prosecution have rested in a murder trial in which an 18-year-old boy is accused of killing his father, we follow the case's 12 jurors into the deliberation room. What at first seems like an open and shut case with the death penalty looming over the boy's head if found guilty by unanimous decision, one juror opposes the rest, voting not guilty, favoring discussion over a quick decision. His opposition creates tension between the group in the hot, cramped room, tension that increasingly amplifies when he starts to prove there's a reasonable doubt with the evidence provided, bringing out the juror's true nature and personal biases in an unrelenting debate for a boy's life. 12 Angry Men from a writing standpoint is an anomaly. It's basically a 90-minute debate that unfolds in real time, never cutting away from the characters. The film doesn't follow a conventional 3-act structure, but is rather divided by sequences, each one pushing the story forward and, for the most part, ending in a vote. First off, we have the initial introductions and first vote that does a great job of laying the groundwork for everything to come, character and plot-wise, with all the information swiftly presented being the core elements that will be broken down, driving the film.
If there's a reasonable doubt in your minds as to the guilt of the accused, then you must bring me a verdict of not guilty.
This is going to be the hottest day of the year.
However you decide, your verdict must be unanimous.
Like that thing with the movies.
Yeah, you can say that again. What about that business with the knife?
No additional element is ever brought in that can turn the tables in favor of any given party, and an easy way out is denied to all the characters, even ones that try.
I changed my vote to not guilty.
You what?
You heard me. I had enough.
If you want to vote not guilty, then do it because you are convinced the man is not guilty, and not because you've had enough. Guilty or not guilty?
I told you. Not guilty.
Why?
Look, I don't have to...
You do have to. Say it. Why?
The second sequence concerns the knife.
Where did that come from?
Which shifts the vote to 10-2. It's during this sequence that the script actively begins engaging the viewer by forcing you to start questioning the evidence, at the same time establishing our major key players, paving the way for escalating conflict.
I know who it was. Brother, you really are something. And you change your vote. If that isn't the most sickening. Why don't you drop a quarter in this collection box?
You can't talk to me like that. No, who do you think you are?
What made you change your vote?
He didn't change his vote. I did.
The first witness's testimony being broken down makes up the third sequence, which is the halfway point.
He was an old man. Half the time he was confused. How could he be positive about anything?
This is arguably the most important segment of the film, as tensions rise exponentially, revealing some of the character's true nature.
You all know he's guilty. He's got to burn. You're letting him slip through our fingers.
While what were considered solid defenses were torn down, reaching an uncontainable boiling point that almost leads to a physical confrontation. At the end of the midway point,
Vote is now 6-6.
with tensions at an all-time high, rain starts pouring. It's a literal cool-down moment made to release stress and let viewers soak in the meatiest portion of the film that can be thought of as an intermission. Remember the fan that didn't work at the beginning? One of the reasons they're all sweaty and out of their jackets? Well,
Hey, huh?
the script cleverly uses the characters' established traits to create conflict, which, as some of you may know, is one of the most important aspects of storytelling. The genius detail is that we see both types of conflict, internal and external, with almost every character. The external side is clear for the most part, but are primarily visible in jurors 3, 5, 6, and 10. The internal conflict, however, is something you almost certainly need a rewatch to catch, but is present at varying times for most of the different key players. The clearest example I could give would be Juror 3.
22 years old. Haven't seen him for 2 years. Here. Rotten kids, you work your life out.
The rest of the sequences are divided as so. Questioning the boy's alibi.
After the boy claimed he'd been at the movies during the hours that the killing took place, couldn't remember the names of the movies.
It was the only alibi the boy offered, and he himself couldn't back it up with any details at all.
Examining the stab angle.
Here's how. Underhanded.
And finally, breaking down the final witness's testimony.
I only know the woman's eyesight is in question now.
You can't send someone off to die on evidence like that.
Is the boy on trial actually guilty or not? It doesn't matter and we'll never know. As said time and time again, the goal was to find reasonable doubt, with the journey getting you to that conclusion being the most important part. On the quest, the lessons learned are the power of knowing how to stand up for oneself, how far prejudice and bigotry can blur our humanity, the dangers of peer pressure and mob mentality, finally, the true value of free thinking embodied by Juror 8. When it comes to screenwriting, 12 Angry Men is a prime example of less is more. Using a simple premise and single location to its full advantage, the tightly written script wastes no action, every line of dialogue playing a pivotal role, making Reginald Rose's 12 Angry Men one of the most compelling dramas ever put to paper.
But let's throw it out on the stoop and see if the cat licks it up.
The cat licks it up.
First and foremost, 12 Angry Men is an almost purely character-driven drama where numbers are the only way we're supposed to identify them. Our cast isn't a bunch of incredibly fleshed out, multi-layered characters, but are clear-cut enough by one of three elements that let the audience know who they are and why they act a certain way, all set up, as I said before, in the first sequence, but continuously hammered into throughout the film. A relationship, most notable with Jurors 3 and 6. Juror 3's internal conflict, a strained relationship with his son, clouds his judgment, ending in him being forced to confront the fact that the kid on trial isn't his son whom he wants to punish, even though it's a boy accused of killing his father, as would do an ungrateful son.
Kids, work your heart out.
Juror 6, on the other hand, leaves more room for the viewer's imagination concerning his life outside the deliberation room. His relationship with Juror 9 is the main reason why he votes not guilty. Throughout the film, Juror 3 badgers the 9th juror that our character has been closely helping since the beginning, only deciding to change his vote after tensions run high and the old man has been howled at for no reason.
Guy talks like that to an old man really ought to get stepped on, you know? You ought to have more respect, mister.
The second element is a strong conviction or belief, seen clearly with Jurors 4, 8, and 9. Jurors 4 and 8 are essentially two sides of the same coin. They both believe in facts, remain logical and unbiased throughout. 4 especially never letting his emotions appear on the case.
Pardon me, but don't you ever sweat?
No, I don't.
Although his solely fact-oriented and clinical approach is the reason he's one of the last members to change his vote, this removed the human factors that made others like 2, 5, 6, 9, and 11 change theirs when presented with overwhelming reasonable doubt. The only time we get that human aspect from Juror 4 is symbolized by him sweating when confronted about the boy's alibi.
I think the point is made.
His change to not guilty is the most impactful due to his shared convictions with Juror 8.
Not guilty.
What's the matter with you?
I have a reasonable doubt now.
Number 8, in addition to his logical, unbiased approach, firmly believes in the value of human life.
It's not easy to raise my hand and send a boy off to die without talking about it first.
Juror 8 isn't convinced that the boy is innocent nor guilty. All he wants is to deconstruct the evidence and see if there could be any holes in the proof given, which he knows there are because of the knife. Juror 9 simply believes in number 8 and what he stands for.
Well, it's not easy to stand alone against the ridicule of others, so he gambled for support, and I gave it to him.
The final element is the personal history that accompanies these characters, shown strongly in Jurors 5 and 11. Number 5 is a man who grew up in the slums, giving us insight during the 5th sequence of how switchblades are supposed to work, providing a major breakthrough in the deliberations.
He went directly to a neighborhood junk shop where he bought one of those switchblade knives.
His decision to vote not guilty doesn't stem from thinking the evidence proves reasonable doubt, but rather number 10's racist remarks.
The kids who crawl out of these places are real trash. I don't want any part of them, I'm telling you.
I've lived in a slum all my life. I've played in backyards that were filled with garbage. I mean,
Maybe you can still smell it on me.
From that point on, Juror 5 is always the first to defend his not guilty advocates, especially against number 10 every chance he gets after being personally insulted, and is also the first to leave when Juror 10 loses what little respect the others had for him.
And let me tell you, they don't need any real big reason to kill someone either. No, sir.
Juror 11's background as an immigrant, supposedly from a non-democratic nation, shows trust in the American judicial system, and like Jurors 4 and 8, takes the process seriously. He changes his vote after analyzing the facts, finally bursting from his extremely polite shell to confront Juror 7 of not having conviction and undermining the justice system.
That's not why we are here, to fight. We have a responsibility. This I have always thought is a remarkable thing about democracy.
This personal history element is further explored by informing us of our cast's professions. Juror 1, a high school football coach that is considered the group's foreman.
Boy, I don't care what you do.
Number 2, a meek bank teller who learns to stand up for himself.
You know what I mean?
Now listen, I don't think you have any right, loudmouth.
Number 4 is an analytical stockbroker concerned about facts and inconsistencies.
I was only wondering how the market closed.
You got a seat on the exchange?
I'm a broker.
Juror 6, a house painter, an everyday blue-collar man, surely exposed to human relations on a daily basis, whose contribution leads to one of the most important moments of the debate.
Supposing you talk us all out of this and, kid really did knife his father, huh?
Number 7 is a salesman who chooses the side that'll get him closer to his goal.
Yeah. Hit them where they live, that's my motto.
Juror 9, an intelligent retiree who is seemingly alone in life, observant and attentive to detail.
There are 12 people in here concentrating on this case. 11 of us didn't think of it either.
And finally, Juror 12, an advertising executive easily swayed when presented with all the pieces in a straightforward, sequential manner.
I thought he was really sharp. Well, the way he hammered home those points one by one, logical sequence, so much evidence to sift. This is a pretty complicated business. It's not so easy to arrange all the evidence in order.
I'll leave the other jurors' interpretations up to you. The 3 clear-cut elements are incredibly well pulled off, to the point where just by reading the script without knowing who's speaking, you're able to recognize each character, all made even more distinguishable in the film by the immensely talented cast that don't overshadow each other, providing everyone with a moment to shine, but working even better as an ensemble.
What's Nobody's hurt.
This aspect of the film's writing, coupled with stellar performances that deliver on the smallest of subtleties, makes 12 Angry Men one of the most rewatchable movies ever made. You can pick one juror for each viewing and experience this motion picture in 12 different ways, gradually noticing things like the order in which a person raises their hand on the first vote, or who decides to glance back at the accused before leaving the jury box. Juror 8 is the film's protagonist. Number 3, the antagonist, constantly opposing him and last to change his vote.
You're alone. I don't care whether I'm alone or not. It's my right.
He can also be seen as 8's opposite in how he values others' opinions, eagerly defending his by being unreasonable and condescending.
Wait a minute, there's some people who haven't talked yet. Shouldn't we go in order?
They'll get a chance to talk. Just be quiet a second, will you?
Our protagonist, on the other hand, is never sure of his statements while remaining open to others, which helps rally them to his cause.
I remember I was arguing with the guy I worked next to at the bank a couple weeks ago. He called me an idiot, so I yelled at him.
Jurors 3, 7, and 10 are characters that bring out one of the core aspects of Juror 8, the value of a life. Jurors 3 and 10 are blinded by their personal prejudices, while 7 solely thinks about the fastest way to get to his baseball game.
Yeah, we can all get out of here pretty quick, huh? I don't know about the rest of you, but I happen to have tickets to that ball game tonight.
All the characters ended up voting not guilty, but these 3 do so for the wrong reasons. They're basically forced out of their trenches, as if an exorcism is being conducted on them. Out of everyone, they sweat the most, especially when their biased positions are being directly questioned. The constant sweat and claustrophobic focal length show us that changing one's worldview is a highly uncomfortable process that requires a strong sense of determination. Paying close attention, you realize that those who sweat the most are the hardest to change. It's those who cannot justify their position any longer, even when confronted with the correct choices.
We want to hear your arguments.
I gave you my arguments.
We're not convinced. We want to hear them again.
Similar to its plot, 12 Angry Men doesn't follow the traditional definition of a soundtrack. The film has one piece of music called Main Theme, composed by Kenyon Hopkins, that is played 3 times throughout the 96-minute runtime. During the opening and closing credits, and finally just before the second vote when juror number 8 takes a gamble by asking for an anonymous ballot. All three music cues highlight Henry Fonda's character contemplating, specifically him not knowing a situation's outcome due to it being out of his control, accentuating his uncertainty. I urge you to keep that in mind on a rewatch to better put into perspective what I mean. Main theme's sparse use makes it all the more important and memorable, even though in its final moments can sound like most film composition ending cards of that era, drenched in fanfare. On the cinematography side, the film sets itself apart from most of that period by applying highly dynamic camera movements and changes in focal length to amplify its script. At first, the picture uses wide angles with the cast being filmed from above, but progressively hones in on our characters throughout the film, ending in extreme unsettling close-ups coupled with faster pace editing during the final 10 minutes when only 2 jurors still hold the guilty verdict, underlining the feeling of claustrophobia, further enhanced by the mounting pressure from others to justify their reasoning until they finally...
You can't prove he didn't get to the door!
The evolving focal length and focus on the main cast transforms the camera itself into a character, therefore making the viewer a 13th member of the room. Rewatch the film with this in mind and you'll notice the camera is constantly at eye level after the first few minutes, with characters sometimes glancing directly at you after heavy statements, as if to convince the viewer through the screen.
Strange, but I didn't think about it before.
The film's Oscar-winning director of photography Boris Kaufman went on to work with Lumet 6 more times, becoming lifelong friends in the process. Fun fact, due to the film's extreme close-ups and lighting, it retains a high level of quality compared to others of its time, in large part because Boris Kaufman is said to have focused immensely on detail and gathering crisp, clean footage for the editing room, which, of course, adds to its timelessness. 12 Angry Men is a film I've personally enjoyed a lot since my first viewing when I was 13. Not only is it great cinema, but I think there's genuinely something to learn for everyone from the film's strong message of standing up against mob mentality, which is more important than ever in today's climate, to the methods of debating used that can be applied to everyday life. Even if you don't enjoy dialogue-heavy films or are put off by black and white cinema, give it a try. I promise you'll be quickly enthralled and it'll surely become one of your favorites.
I'm convinced.
In the end, 12 Angry Men is an incredibly written and directed, character-driven drama that fully explores the themes presented in a compelling way, filled to the brim with Oscar-worthy performances and stellar cinematography ahead of its time, constantly breaking convention with its subject matter still relevant today as it was over half a century ago. A film worthy of all the praise given, and a golden standard for any aspiring screenwriter. Thank you all for watching and sticking around this long. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do subscribe and drop a like if you did, and hopefully, I'll see you all next time.